I'm on YouTube.
Hi. පන්සියෙන් ලබා දුන්නු හැමෝ දෙනාටම ගොඩක් ස්තුතියි. Before looking at how to be an ethical leader, it is useful to consider what might lead you to an ethical failure. Author and ethical leadership expert Linda Fisher points to a number of connected factors that can lead to ethical failures by individual leaders and by organizations. Now let's focus on individual causes. Like those individual causes include ignoring boundaries such as organizational values or industry codes, and following the crowd. For example, like if you are thinking everyone is doing that, so why not me? Why cannot I do that? So like when you follow the crowd, it is also can cause an ethical failure, and lack of self-control. And organizational causes include lack of positive role models, lack of codified standards of behavior and training, and lack of accountability. Now let's walk through 6 steps you can take to define ethical standards. First one, define your organization's value. Second one, know your personal values. Third, set the tone. Fourth, recognize ethical dilemmas. And the fifth, deal with ethical dilemmas. The last and the final, sixth, you have to be courageous. Be courageous. Now let's walk through one by one, and the first step is define your organization's values. Your people likely look to you as their manager or leader to set an example in ethical leadership. But to do this, you first need to know your organization's values so that you can embody them in your day-to-day business. Machinery manufacturer Deere & Corporation, for example, was recognized in 2018 as one of the most ethical companies in the world. Why? Because it is committed to upholding the highest standards of honor and integrity, and because everyone from the C-suite to the shop floor does business in alignment with Deere's core values. Hopefully, like that company, your company has clear rules about the behavior it expects of its people. These rules usually flow from the organization's mission and vision statements. You need to communicate these rules clearly to your team members. When people understand why ethical behavior matters, they will more likely behave accordingly. The second step, know your personal values. Okay? Good leaders follow their personal values as well as their organizational values. To see if that's the case for you, ask yourself these questions. What standards of behavior are really important to my company? What specific values do I admire in certain leaders? Do I identify with those values? Third, would I still live by those values even if they put me at my competitive disadvantage? Third step, set the tone. When you are sure of your organizational and personal values, you can begin to create the right environment for your team and your organization. Again, being a good role model is the best way to do this. People will model their behavior on yours, and they will in turn set an example for others to follow. The ripple effect. Can you remember the ripple effect? You put one stone and it causes more waves to generate. So, if for example your company values honesty above all else, then be sure to demonstrate it by being transparent with everyone around you. And if your company values free speech, make a point of allowing your team members to openly communicate their ideas. Next, be sure that your people know the consequences of behavior that doesn't live up to your corporate values or which breaks the rules on ethical behavior. These consequences don't have to be punitive. You don't have to punish people, but they should remind people of the standards of behavior that you expect of them. positive consequences are important to consider. Rewarding team members who consistently act according to the company values. Even a simple thank you note will likely be appreciated. And sharing examples of team members who did the right thing in challenging situations can reinforce and communicate values powerfully. The fourth step, recognize ethical dilemmas. Now imagine this scenario. You are in a meeting with other top executives and one of your colleagues is grossly exaggerating his team's performance. Instead of saying that its project will increase company earning by 4% as he told you, he is promising a 12% increase. What would you do? He is a close colleague and a personal friend, but on the other hand, he is being dishonest. Should you support him or tell the truth to the other executives? We are often faced with those choices in the workplace, but most ethical dilemmas aren't this obvious. So how do you recognize them? Now, first, identify trigger situations. Certain situations such as purchasing, hiring, firing, promoting and calculating bonuses seem to attract ethical dilemmas. So be wary when you are involved, and a threat to your image or income could skew your judgment. What if you make a mistake, for example? Will you admit to it or try to cover it up? By recognizing when ethical dilemmas are most likely to occur, you can be more attuned to the risk. Now, listen to your inner voice. Your conscience likely tells you when something isn't right, creating a feeling of uneasiness. If a situation makes you uncomfortable or goes against one of your core values or beliefs, stop and think things through rationally before proceeding. The fifth step, deal with ethical dilemmas. Recognizing ethical dilemmas is one thing, but often deciding what to do about them is quite another. And even when you know what you ought to do, actually doing it can be very difficult. There are several ways to respond to an ethical dilemma. You can prepare in advance. Now, how can you do this? Visualizing theoretical scenarios can help you to walk through your feelings and to decide what to do in reality. In a crisis, you may only have seconds to reach a decision. You don't have much time, you just have milliseconds maybe. So rehearsing can be a great help. So you need to rehearse yourself. You have to visualize what will happen in the future. What would you do, for example, if you know that a colleague was about to be fired, but you weren't legally allowed to tell him? How would you choose to act? See, you need to know what you will do in that kind of a situation. You can also conduct this exercise with your team members, then you all together can see the future and have rehearsals about the future, so it will be easy to make decisions. Okay, the next, weigh up the evidence. In the example of your colleague presenting different information to executives than he gave to you, is there a chance that the figures changed legitimately? Wherever possible, take the time to investigate and assess whether someone has behaved unethically before taking action. Now, you can take an action and tell your friend, "Oh, my brother, you did something wrong, that's not correct," but think, it can be a small mistake as well. Just numbers. At the end, people matters, not the numbers. Yeah? Think about it. And the next step, the next point, re-evaluate your decision before you act. If you are in a difficult situation and you are unsure what to do, try out making a decision. But before you act on it, ask yourself how you would feel if your actions were made public. Would you be proud of what you did? If not, reconsider your decision. You just have to rethink about it. Finally, get advice. Getting input from others can help you to assess a situation more rationally and lead to a better quality decision. After all, even the most senior leaders take advice in difficult situations. For example, think of anyone, Jack Ma. He publicly has accepted that he take advice from his workers. So that's something good. Take advice. The final and the sixth step, be courageous. Sometimes you will act on a decision but wonder if you did the right thing. And even when you are certain that you were right, there can still be unpleasant consequences. Consider for an example the leader who informs an auditor about irregular accounting in her firm. She knows that she is being honest and correct, but the upsetting result may be that friends and colleagues lose their jobs. So you might be uncomfortable at times as an ethical leader, but these situations can teach you to trust yourself and your instincts. If you calm your anxiety and look logically at the situation, your instincts will often guide you in the right direction.